Hello, everyone. It's the it's the third weekend of May 2022, and this is the weekly broadcast. We're doing something a little bit different today. I have with me Mawaz as a guest or maybe trial co-host, and and we're just gonna sit here for like an hour or however long it takes. Until we get through some of this news. You can see that I have
you might
a bajillion tabs.
you might have to do a lot of editing.
You might have to speak up.
I doubt that. I sounded pretty clear on the test.
Okay, we did do a quick test. Okay, so our first article we have here is what's behind the US baby formula shortage.
A lot, apparently.
Yeah, so
Do we start with the conspiracies or do we start with the facts?
well, let's see what government CTV is saying on May 12th. So why is there a shortage? Apparently it's COVID, of course.
I mean, yeah.
Disruptions in labor, transportation, raw materials. We couldn't see that coming. And it says right here actually that even like in February they knew that the shortage was coming. Even after they knew that the shortage was coming, they continued to send baby formula to like the southern border and stuff.
In America specifically.
Yeah, and it just says like, oh, why can't all mothers rely on breast milk? Just like standard mainstream media filler. What should you do?
Why would you mention breastfeeding to someone who's using formula? Like there's a good chance they're using formula because they can't breastfeed.
Yeah.
So, what a liberal solution to a problem.
Yeah. Talk with your doctor and stuff. Try to find alternatives. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Don't make your own. Okay, this is when our supply is likely to improve. Just 6 to 8 weeks. Okay.
Really?
All right, that's helpful. So this is from the Associated Press. So for those of you that don't know how this kind of news stuff works, it's so like the CT, like the Associated Press is like what's called a news wire, and then CTV News pays to subscribe to them. And then the Associated Press has the actual like on the ground reporters that will basically put this story out on the newswire. And this article is actually a copy and paste from the newswire onto CTV. So if you copied and paste this article, you probably find like different identical versions of this on other sites. And that's one way you can get around a paywall sometimes. So the most common ones might be like Toronto Star or Bloomberg. If it's behind a paywall, a lot of times you can just copy and paste the headline back, or copy and paste like the first paragraph into Google
and come up with
the exact same one.
Yeah.
Or similar one, whatever. So there's a US baby formula shortage, obviously. Apparently, baby formula shortage in the US is not a threat in Canada, as the Retail Council of Canada says, published yesterday by the Globe and Mail. I haven't actually, gone through all of these articles. Well, I did throughout the week, but then I just kind of like I basically just went through today and looked through our chats to see if there was anything. And I just went through like Google News and stuff. But yeah, there's just, all your standard reporting on that. Okay, why is it not a threat? Because the supply chains are different?
Maybe, possibly. I mean, they claim it.
Canada's increased baby formula from other parts of the world, but all of the inputs are running low. So that's like a temporary solution. But yeah, anyways, retailers across Canada are still selling formula online. There's no shortage, nothing to worry about here, says Retail Council of Canada. And then the very next article I have here is oh shoot. Okay, well, there are like I think I have an article here somewhere about how there are actually baby formula shortages in Canada.
Yeah, I've seen an article or two floating around.
But yet here we have
claiming that Canada was going to see shortages and has already started to see a shortage.
Yeah.
And I mean, just going to the store alone told me that we had a shortage.
Yeah, but apparently it's not a threat, according to the Retail Council
of
Canada. The council has spoken. and Canadians to see biggest price increase at restaurants over cooking oil shortage. So
Well,
like,
that I believe, because there's real
Yeah.
sanctions and
yeah, I keep telling people like, you haven't seen nothing yet. And we really, haven't seen nothing yet. So this is from May 11th on CTV. Because of poor harvest due to climate change, supply issues caused by COVID, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
they're
Yeah.
going to blame COVID and Russia forever until they essentially can't blame them anymore.
Yeah, never mind the fact that we had, changing weather patterns that we could have seen coming, that we could have adapted to. Never mind the fact that we could have, maybe like designed our systems to be, more food secure.
Oh yeah, there's lots of
Never
options
mind
for
like
that.
never mind all of the agricultural like interference that the government does in order to keep all the supply management systems operational, how they have all of those agricultural mafias and stuff. Like every agricultural sector in Canada is a cartel.
Yeah.
Maybe we could actually increase production faster if we didn't have everything super
No
overregulated.
shitty.
And all the money is just being printed, so nobody can really rely on the dollars anymore. Especially when stuff like farming, you really have to rely on the fact that you can save your dollars this year and then use them for inputs next year, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with the way that Canada works in particular. That's a thing that most people don't know. They don't even know about the cartels.
Yeah.
And people don't know that milk is literally a cartel, and you wonder why it's so expensive here and it was so cheap in the States.
Yeah. So those of you who don't know, like the Dairy Farmers of Canada is like one of Canada's most powerful lobbying groups, and they basically have bought all of the political parties. So that's why milk costs so much more here than in the States. That's why in every free trade deal with any other country, we're giving concessions on all sorts of important stuff except for dairy, because that's basically the bottom line. It doesn't really help with our food security because all of the supply is like tightly managed. I dare you to try to become a dairy farmer in Canada.
Yeah, good luck. You never will. You'll never break into it unless you're born into that family.
You need to marry into it.
You really do. That's not the only cartel either. You got that. We have like over-regulated produce everywhere, especially meat.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
I'm surprised we don't have more like leftist activists being like, farmers are too white, because like nobody other than white people can be certain kinds of farmers. Because the government makes it so that only, the same people can continue to have the permits.
But also, because they're a part of a cartel, that means the government's also getting a cut as well, right? So anybody that's in liberal government, doesn't matter who you are, what you do, you're still getting a cut out of that. So you're not going to say anything.
Yeah.
There's no point, right? They're really only self-interested. So
yeah. I screwed up something. I'll fix it later. And then obviously you got your standard. Biden blames Russia's war in Ukraine for food supply shortages and price hikes.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That makes zero sense. Literally, since when did Ukraine provide to the States in any shape or form?
Yeah, or like I guess you could argue that like, Ukraine can't produce food, so like all the African countries, they have to like buy from like America.
Yeah, but then Biden forks out $40 million to send to Ukraine in order to help themselves. It's just, it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of back and forth, and what seems to be, I don't know how to describe it other than like, if people are paying attention, they would at least understand that there's an issue here.
Yeah.
Like he's contradicting himself all the time.
Or, we could also just like stop exporting all the food. Canada and the US are net exporters of food. We can just start, doing what so many other countries are doing, like Hungary, Slovakia, Moldova.
Like think about it this way. If the
India.
state starts to have serious food shortages, they're going to look to Canada to see if Canada can give them anything.
Yeah. And
Canada will, because Trudeau's a bitch.
Yeah.
And would just hand over whatever we have available. Meanwhile, that leaves the rest of the Canadians starving.
I read earlier in the year about how in Canada earlier this year, basically the amount that we are like expecting to export in terms of food is probably going to be more than the total amount of food we're going to make this year. So that seems sustainable. I think that's going to be a common theme.
A lot of government saying, don't worry.
Yeah. And all of a sudden we have, The Guardian, pretty mainstream English. I think it's British.
Yeah.
Pretty mainstream news site. All of a sudden we're talking about what lessons we can learn from the last mini ice age.
Oh my God.
Like sometimes sometimes these things are just like a coincidence. Like somebody wants to get an article out and nobody's really written about this, so they want to get one out. But sometimes it's not a coincidence. And I'm wondering if maybe more people are starting to catch on to the idea that there are like cooling patterns happening in terms of climate change. Like we are like, I kind of want to think that they understand that global warming, the global warming narrative turned out to just not be borne out by the evidence over the last century and a half, out of the last decade and a half, because they stopped saying global warming and they started saying climate change, right? I don't know. Maybe they just started saying climate change because people were like, oh, but it's snowing. But
it might have been that, but who knows, honestly.
Yeah.
There's no way you can't verify something as simple as that.
Yeah. And
unfortunately.
What I think is that there are these like big natural cycles where we have these like cooling periods because the sun goes into like a minimum energy state, and the governments know that they're basically powerless to this, but they want to desperately seem like they're in control.
Yeah.
So they
don't want the citizens to panic. That's the problem.
Yeah. So the climate change narrative is perfect in terms of you can actually try to deal with the fact that these natural phenomena happen, but you can still convince people that the government is going to solve it by reducing your standard of living. Because if they told the truth and said it was just this global cooling and stuff, then there really isn't a justification for them to.
There's no justification for the carbon tax. There's no justification for any tax related to anything global warming or climate change related, anything.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that this is really probably about resource scarcity. Like we are going to run out of energy and resources. So they want everybody else to consume less energy and resources. And the perfect excuse is climate change. And when this natural stuff happens, you can just blame it on climate change, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, governments have to have very complex but simple things to point at in order to blame something on something.
Yeah.
And they're not going to take the blame, because then you lose any trust from any shills or people who do nothing but trust government.
So I saw that previous article and I kind of didn't really think much of it, but it was only after seeing this article that I went back and saw that article in a maybe different
way,
light, which is, okay, so the Tonga volcano was the most ferocious eruption in 150 years. This is published by CNN on May 12th, 2022, but we're talking about an eruption that happened in December, right? So why are we, just now talking about this volcano being the most powerful eruption in 140 years? Because this information was known back in January when I was looking at this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's recorded, obviously.
And so maybe what it is that they're starting to realize that this volcanic eruption actually did cause a lot more like climate craziness in this particular year than was previously thought. Do you remember, like in January, February, I was talking about this volcano and how nobody was really realizing the gravity of.
Yeah, there was a couple of volcanoes you kept bringing up.
Yeah, I mean the volcanic activity on the planet has been just kind of off the charts lately, but
like to a concerning degree.
And really. the thing with the volcanic stuff is that it releases all of the smoke into the atmosphere, and that blocks the amount of sunlight that comes into the earth.
It takes forever to dissipate because it gets launched into one of the atmospheres.
Yeah, so by blocking sunlight directly and also by reducing the temperature overall, it interferes with crop production. And what we're seeing is just like all the different possible ways that crop production could go wrong is going wrong this year.
Yeah, basically.
It's kind of like
it might even be leading up to next year to where some of these volcanoes might actually erupt.
Yeah, and I saw some articles about how we're gonna completely run out of like global like grain supplies next year. And if they're saying that, they're not even. I think I have that article in here actually. And then the Northeast is just running out of diesel. Like you need diesel for everything. Everything you see at the supermarket gets to the supermarket by diesel.
Yeah.
All of the farm equipment needs diesel. Farm equipment's like missing parts and stuff that they can't get now because of supply chain issues. So you just got these like huge like $1 million combines sitting there because you can't get like $1,000 part because it's stuck on a boat somewhere.
Yeah, at this point, it's like when you look at all of this news and stack it up all together and actually read between the lines, it's very concerning.
Yeah.
It's almost borderline overwhelming.
But don't you think abortion is the most important issue?
Oh, yes. Very much.
It's almost like we're being distracted here.
I know.
You'd think that like they're so good at drawing like massive attention to like the stupidest stuff like George Floyd or like January 6th protests. You think that like food shortages, like literally everything that can go wrong with food is going wrong. You think like somebody would be
think, but no. And it's because again, people trust government. It's not just I think that, but also people don't want to
come to terms
with any actual reality. They're only interested in things that are solvable.
So do facts care about your feelings?
Well, that depends on who you ask.
Yeah, but there are the real facts. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so
I mean, the real facts are a lot more terrifying than things that could be resolved socially. So anything that's a social issue, especially like abortion, that's a social issue. People give a shit about that more because you can relate to it and it's a human response to it. But when it comes to real problems like not the ability to eat, that's so terrifying that people just kind of mentally shut down and don't know how to handle it, or they just automatically think that you're a conspiracy theorist. So
we can only see like our current level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, basically.
And like we don't understand that we still have to maintain.
It's just so
having
funny
food.
It's like
you need food.
I think we might have been one of the last generations that have actually learned about that and have completely forgot that it exists.
Yeah.
As like a term of way that humans should be living by, but now we're so comfortable that we just don't need it anymore.
Yeah. So this article says why the Northeast is quietly running out of diesel. What it should be saying is
I don't know about quietly.
I mean, it is quieter than it should be.
That's
literally,
true.
This should be front and center, #1 news story in everybody's minds at this particular moment, probably. So so it is quiet. It should really say quickly, because this stuff is gonna hit in like the next like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And like 2 to 6 weeks, because
and people thought the convoy was an issue. The convoy is a totally different issue.
Yeah, you're gonna have the trucks like accidentally blockading everything because they're gonna run out of diesel
on the highway.
Yeah. So like diesel, like it affects everything. And then think about like all of the supply chain bottlenecks. This is going to create like a whole new set of supply chain bottlenecks.
Yeah, it is.
And it's going to like,
they're still going to blame it on COVID.
Yeah, they'll blame it on COVID. Well, because this is because of COVID, right? Because we're running out of diesel, even though we could have made more diesel, even though like I've been investing in companies that would make more diesel as soon as they get the green light for like 2 years now. So like clearly it is possible to understand that we need to make more diesel.
Yeah, we have all of the resources to make diesel as well as gasoline, like could literally provide for our own country, but no. We're somehow infringing upon the rights of hereditary chiefs that actually don't mean shit and just waste your money anyway.
Yeah, when you go east of Ontario, our oil is primarily actually imported from the Middle East,
Mhm.
which is so silly.
That's how do people not give a shit about
So it's
that?
like, okay, so you don't want, so Quebec doesn't want any pipelines to go through Quebec.
Yeah.
So they want to bring the oil by boat from the middle fucking
Yeah.
east instead.
In
Yeah. Oh yeah,
barrels.
that's better for the environment. And that's
So good.
That's safer.
So good. Burning all of that sweet coal and other diesel.
Yeah. So this is quiet, but it shouldn't be quiet. Like, look.
No, it shouldn't
So
be.
this is May 11th. So this might be even before. Truckers all across the eastern United States are getting this message about how there's going to be diesel shortages and it might start screwing everything up. People are going to just not be able to refuel potentially. Certain like chains of like truck stops, they're just running out of diesel.
Yeah, like if you thought that gasoline was starting to spike in terms of price,
yeah,
wait until you see the shortages, and then the price is going to literally skyrocket for diesel.
Yeah, because the price of everything you buy is dependent on diesel. You buy things from a store, it got there using diesel. If you buy things on Amazon, guess what? It also got to your place using diesel.
Which is another thing that we heard about the other day. Amazon suddenly or very soon they're going to experience shortages because of the diesel problem.
Yeah, and they also have shortages of tires. They're buying all of Costco's tires because they know that they can see that they're not going to be able to get tires for their delivery vehicles soon.
Yeah.
Look at this. They're getting like trucker notices. It would probably be a good habit to fuel prior to entering the following areas. And this is just like huge sections of the United States: Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey.
Which is pretty concerning because if those are the areas that are going to be hit the hardest first, that means you can't even get across the country itself. Yeah. Like there's just, forget it. Like if you're stuck in one state, you're stuck in one state. Like,
how are you going to buy things?
You can't.
Like you're going to be in New York City and all the surrounding states have no diesel. None of the trucks can actually get to you.
Don't give me that shit about people like bringing in the idea of flying in food because it's like...
Yeah, because kerosene, jet fuel is in an even deeper shortage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to hear it. Like people, like what are you going to do? You're going to travel to another state just to get food? No, because all of the food there is going to be gone too. Like it's just a chain reaction, really.
Yeah. So this, handsome looking billionaire says that the East Coast is going to have to start rationing diesel really soon. Does he give a time frame? Because I'm thinking in the next month or two.
Well, it's going to be soon, that's for sure.
Yeah. So of course we can blame COVID and the crisis in Ukraine. It's like
I don't understand how this is related to Ukraine.
It almost sounds sarcastic, like in the article, but they mean this seriously. They have to include it in everything.
They have to, because that's the safe assumption. That's why.
So the crisis in Ukraine.
Well, we're not sending diesel to Ukraine.
What is the actual? Okay, so Europe's desperation for diesel. We're not really sending Europe that much diesel.
I don't know exactly what the States is doing specifically, but I know they sent money, but they haven't really sent anything of like physicality as far as I'm aware. It's the same thing with Canada too. Like I really don't understand. Like how could someone read this and think yes?
Yeah, I mean this makes more sense. COVID. Like the refineries on the East Coast had to scale back because of staffing issues.
That makes sense.
But
to a degree.
Okay, so like who could have seen that coming?
Exactly. But even then, it's like, well, even if you have staffing problems, that doesn't necessarily mean your yield is going to be less.
Yeah. Anyways.
It's frustrating.
I mean, you can like ramp up yield. You
could.
Like especially,
Like think about it. Most people you're not like shoveling diesel from the ground yourself. Like the machines are doing that.
Shoveling diesel.
Like how else would you extract it as a human being, really?
Okay, and then we have, look at this. Biden official says food shortages. So they're saying food shortages. Biden is saying food shortages. Klaus Schwab is saying food shortages. Trudeau is saying food shortages.
Yeah, it's finally on the political table.
and this is May 1st. It says, okay, so the food shortages will push farmers to green energy. Never let a crisis go to waste.
It's not going to push them towards green energy.
This reminds me of that shit that was like, oh, Biden says that we're going to have.
We're seeing global food shortages all around the world.
Shut the hell up,
Shut the hell up, bitch. Who do you think you are? Working for pedophile ABC. Yeah, okay, so like, this is the way that they think about it. Like, they understand that food shortages are coming.
Yeah,
and the only thing they can think about is their agenda.
Exactly, because it's a political party.
Yeah,
and the parties are so large at this point and
pushing,
so deep in pockets that they just can't help themselves but lie.
Yeah, and pushing farmers to green energy. Like, what is that
literally
really about?
What exactly do they mean by green energy?
They just want you to.
Are they going to have them just like hoe the land?
They just want everybody else to use less resources.
Of course. Well, that too, because all of the farming equipment runs on diesel as well. Yeah. They literally say green energy because they want them to go back to the days of using cows as literal hoeing.
Well, that kind of reminds me of how like Sri Lanka before, I was before COVID, they tried to switch to organic farming, so like no fertilizers and stuff, and they had massive food shortages.
It's a total shit show because it doesn't work.
You can't just feed millions of people.
Like, I get it. People don't want GMO shit, but in reality, on a global scale, when you're providing for as many citizens as you are, you need those chemicals and those pesticides in order to make crops grow. Yeah. Because if you did it organically, we would drop so fast in population.
Yeah, maybe that's the goal. Like,
maybe it could be, but I mean, that's
to solve climate change, you know?
Yeah, so it could be. But of course, that's another conspiracy.
Well, why would the government do that?
The government would never.
You know, we elect the government.
Oh my God, that is the biggest fucking fallacy that anybody has ever told themselves ever. I swear to God. And like, that's not to shit on either of us. We thought that at one point too, but it's like, in reality, come on.
Yeah, we talked about like different countries. So there's also like Kazakhstan, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, like all of these major agricultural exporters are now, they're not only are they banning exports, but in some places in South America. So South America had their, you know, their summers are winters, right?
Yeah.
So they actually maybe, and they're closer to that Tonga volcano too. So they might have had there might have been more of an impact there. But
yeah, there might have been.
They had huge crop failures in all of those countries. And not only were for example, Paraguay, I think they export something like 60% of their soy production or something, and they're like a major producer of
animal feed. A massive amount.
And this year they're trying to be net importers. Yeah. So how's that going to work out? So what are they going to do? They're going to import from us. Canadian grains industry committed to finding new markets. We're still desperately trying to sell as much food as we can because we got all this, you know, debt that we have to deal with, and you know, it's not like Canada has any
courtesy of our lovely prime minister.
Yeah, we don't have any proper strategic reserves because we always think, oh well, we'll just sell our natural resources, and okay, so I guess that's that much less food for us to fight over with, you know, to bid up all the prices with all of our printed dollars. So, and then there was that thing earlier, I think last month, about how Trudeau was saying he wants to target grains growers as one of the biggest emitters and carbon emitters in Canada.
Oh my God.
Even though with that same mouth he's talking about food shortages. That same mouth he's talking about
no sense.
The same mouth he's talking about food shortages, and he's talking about having to crack down on grains growers because of emissions.
He's desperately trying to spin a narrative here. But
do you think he's aware?
I don't know.
I like obviously these two things.
He has to be. Someone on the team, regardless of how dumb his team is, which is pretty dumb.
Or maybe
realistically, someone has to know, and it is at least advising him on what to say. But it's so contradictory that it just kind of, I don't know. I don't know if he doesn't realize how dumb he actually sounds.
Maybe he just assumes that the food shortage is only going to be for like Black people, like in Africa.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what he considers to be a food shortage in general. or what exactly, who is advising him on
But like
what
based on what he
related to
said,
it,
he
but
did seem to understand the fact that global food shortage means higher food prices in Canada.
yeah.
So there's already people who can't afford food.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that like most of our food is actually import. Like we have, you know, normal Canadian grown things, aka like potatoes and grains, but that's it.
Mm.
we can provide like meat and maybe some like dairy or whatever, but again, that's it. We don't have anything else. Like fruit, forget it.
Yeah.
Vegetables, it's just, I don't know.
And this year, it's just it's not a good year for growing either. So
exactly.
that's
so
the
everything
other part.
keeps adding up.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll see a lot of people talk about like one issue but not the other, because we have this like super specialized society mindset where we have to look at like one issue at a time in isolation instead of seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, nobody likes looking at the macro product.
Yeah.
Or worrying about it, really, because that's, again, overwhelming for our tiny little pea brains.
Yeah, here's what I was talking about earlier. So Fortune, May 13, Russia-driven food shortage means cereal and corn will start running out in 2023, the UN warns. So the UN is warning that we're going to run out of cereal and corn in 2023. And
but we already have corn shortages.
I actually didn't read this article, but when I clicked it, I wanted to see if this is even going to mention all of the weather anomalies. Like maybe it does.
I mean, all you can do is look and find out.
You got Ukraine, more Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine. So we're talking about, the UN is talking about cereal and corn running out in 2023, and they don't even mention the fact that none of the farming is being done. Hashtag no plants 22.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So that's probably going to be this year, huh?
Well, yeah, imagine.
if you actually take into account all of the important variables. But here's why food shortages are unlikely to occur in the US. It's like, all right, take your chance.
I mean, all right.
I hope not, but
that's definitely that utopia Kool-Aid that they're drinking right there.
So it's so funny. Every time I read about Ukrainian grain exports, the number always goes down. So as soon as the war started, there was that Reuters article that was like half of Ukrainian grain exports expected to not work, or like, and then they were like, Ukraine's going to only export a third of what they usually export.
Oh my God.
And now we've gotten to Ukrainian grain exports last month were a quarter of what they were in February. Okay, now listen to me very carefully. Ukraine grain exports last month are going to be less than 5% of what they normally are. Like, that's just the fact of the matter. They're not growing as much because they can't, there's a war.
Exactly.
There's a war.
I mean, you can't exactly grow crops when you have someone shooting at you.
They also can't get any stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you got to get the stuff out of the ground, and then you got to get it to the boat. And the port is being bombed, and you got to get it on the boat.
Everything's a shit show.
You got to get the boat to another country, but Russia's blockading the boats. And it's like, okay, things are not going to get exported. I don't know, like, what is the point of, like, they always go for the most optimistic case. That's why they started with half, and then a third, and then a quarter. Why?
I don't know. Maybe it's like to avoid scaring the shit out of the public.
Yeah.
I don't know. That, or it's just, I don't know. It's very glass half full. In fact, it's probably a full glass, but it's empty.
Yeah.
Type situation.
So food prices are rising. Okay. So some people aren't going to be able to afford food. So, but that's just a food shortage for you, not for society. So we don't care.
You're poor? Oh, too bad, I guess.
Look, all of a sudden, look at this. The reason why we don't have food shortages expected in the United States is because it's important to realize that the US doesn't import very much from Ukraine. So now all of a sudden,
okay, this is where you get your contradictory statements.
Like all of a sudden you understand that Ukraine is like a different place.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, it's not the US. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, by some degree, that's admitting that the Ukraine has nothing to do with the actual shortages in the US.
And this is, and exactly. And this is like what I was what I was saying earlier. We can say with some real confidence that the average consumer is not going to see a shortage of bread because of what's happening in Ukraine. It's like, it's not going to be because of what's happening in Ukraine.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with
it's going to be all different reasons.
Do we get our wheat from Ukraine? No.
Yeah. So like this article, it doesn't say, here's why food shortages are unlikely to occur in the US because of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Right? But then you go through this whole article and at the end you get, oh, there's not going to be a shortage because of Ukraine.
Yeah.
So like even by this own article substance, you can have food shortages for any other reason, but no, it's unlikely.
At least they admit that it's not Ukraine.
Yeah.
Unlike everywhere else where it is Ukraine's fault somehow.
Well, it's another case of like the headline doesn't match the article.
It doesn't.
You read the headline and you're like, oh, great, all the farming is fine.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, I have nothing to worry about. But in reality, all it's doing is admitting that everywhere else that's saying that Ukraine has something to do with it, it's just not the case.
This is a fun one from yesterday. Johns
yeah.
Hopkins Child Abuse Center hires a fucking pedophile.
Literally, yeah.
That's like
that shit. How are like, people okay with this?
Wasn't there that like rape center that hired a rapist and stuff? But like this is like
I couldn't tell you. I don't recall ever. You know what? I really should have known about that because I actually give a shit about this stuff a lot. I have no sympathy or empathy for anybody that says they're attracted to minors in any way or anybody that infringes upon children. Yeah. Things that children don't fucking think about, aka like masturbation.
Yeah. So this person literally had to resign from Virginia University because they were defending pedophiles. They were saying that the term minor attracted person is less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile. And then
that's the whole point behind that is so that they can get under the umbrella of the LGBTQ community. Yep. That's literally what that's for.
And they just got hired by Johns Hopkins University Center, dedicated to preventing child sexual abuse.
Wow.
It's almost like the society doesn't care about the well-being of children.
No, they really don't.
Almost.
It went from, like, think about it this way. All of the population went from not giving a shit about children up until like maybe 150 years ago, 100 years ago. And then we really gave a shit about them. And now we're back to not giving a shit about them.
That's true.
Like all of a sudden the kids, it's like, all right.
So it's just like a fourth turning thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cycle. It's kind of weird.
So we got an article from Better Dwelling, May 13. Too in debt to fail, Bank of Canada warns real estate may pause rate hikes. Forget about like people buying homes, but like even the government itself, like more than 10% of your, like this is pre-COVID, more than 10% of your federal taxes and more than 10% of your provincial taxes go towards paying the interest, just the interest on the debt of the government. Mm-hmm. And because of COVID, they lowered all the interest rates, and the government said, oh, because of low interest rates, we have to take advantage and borrow all of this freaking money to deal with COVID. But now because of inflation, we're having to raise interest rates to scale back some of that money printing. Mm-hmm. So, but how is the government going to be able to pay for the interest on the debt?
They can't.
So then the government goes bankrupt really quickly. Like, so right now, we're probably spending around 15 to 20% of our tax revenues on debt on the interest. Yeah. Now, what people don't understand is if we like 5x interest rates, that doesn't mean that the government's going to start paying just 5 times. So 5 times 15 to 20 would be, that would already be 75 to 100%, right? Mm. But it's actually going to be way more than that because the increasing interest rate is actually slowing down the economy. Mm-hmm. So there's less taxes for the government to collect in the first place. So very quickly you have the situation where, okay, if interest rates have to go up by 5 times, then very quickly the percentage of tax revenues that have to go towards interest payments on the debt would become more than 100%, and then you're bankrupt. Nobody really knows what happens when all the countries go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, economic disaster, really.
Yeah, so this is the big question. I think so I was talking to you about this over lunch. It's just like there's like you can slowly start seeing the gears turning in, some financial people's heads about,
Yeah.
oh, the Bank of Canada has to raise interest rates by like a bajillion times in order to control this inflation.
Yeah.
Oh, but you can't do that. Okay, so we're fucked. Oh, but
Yeah.
but like the dots are there starting to be there, and the connections are just like almost starting to form.
Realistically, the dots were always there, but
Yeah.
people were just too, I don't know,
We're discovering it.
distracted
Yeah.
by literally everything else, aka like COVID and Ukraine,
Yeah.
to realize that shit is hitting the fan very fast. So
Yeah. Do we even want to talk about this one? So
what is it?
now let's skip this one. We're actually taking a lot of time. This one was good. New York Times. What's the date? New York Times. Oh, this is an old article. Okay. I wanted to do only new articles. But anyways, Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't like Roe v. Wade. She knew that it was bad precedent. So she could foresee that it could be overturned in the future. And then yet everybody's like, I'm a legal scholar and I can't believe that a 50-year precedent that everybody knows this shit would ever be overturned.
I know.
What does this mean for
It's
a rule
shocking.
of law in society? Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, there's that problem with Roe versus Wade that it's people don't actually understand what it does
Yeah.
specifically and what overturning it would do. It just returns the power to decide whether it's illegal or legal for abortion to be a thing in certain states. That's it. Like it's very simple. It doesn't actually infringe upon anybody's rights. Almost in any way.
Yeah, but you can't let the people decide.
Also, you can, even if you live in a state where it's illegal, you can literally hop in a car and go over to the next state that has legal abortion and legally abort your child. Like that's fully available to them.
But what if you're Amish and poor and then like the
But if you're Amish, you're not getting a legal abortion anyway. You're not even going to a hospital. They just like shove a coat hanger in you and call it a day.
Yeah, so maybe we should have I don't know.
It's just a mess. Like I talked to my friends about that specifically. Like they were under the guise of what the mainstream media was talking about, saying that it was infringing upon human rights and stuff. And I told them exactly what it does and what exactly it's not going to do. And they were shocked. They were like, I had no idea that it was the issue.
There's so many things where like the mainstream group consciousness is just so fundamentally unaware of just like,
well, that's just it. Everybody reads a headline and runs away with it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this pretty much explains itself. May 13, White House defends sending baby formula to border as morally right. So there was a whistleblower, one of the border guards basically blew the whistle on while all this baby formula shortage is happening, they're sending pallets and pallets of it to the border to feed the illegal immigrant babies.
Photos of it too, to prove that it's happening.
There maybe it's even in here somewhere. I don't know. Maybe not.
Either way, point being is that they tried to justify sending all of this baby formula that American mothers and trans mothers or fathers, however you want to address yourself as, need that.
Yeah.
Like they literally need it. And they're trying to justify it by saying it's better gone to illegal aliens.
Yeah.
That legally aren't even supposed to be in the US.
It's the law. You know what's the law? It's the law to not illegally cross the border. And
yeah,
maybe especially when there's a food shortage, maybe we, don't tolerate that.
It's like they essentially told Americans to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, America last instead of America first. They really are they're really accelerating.
That's such a liberal mindset where everybody else but your own community matters.
Yeah.
It's just sad.
Netflix taking woke workers to leave.
That I can applaud that. Although Netflix is they're contradictory too. Like they're putting out a lot of really questionable content that has to do with either young children or the LGBT community. And it kind of puts it in a really bad light.
Yeah.
And then they go and do things like, well, we're going to do whatever we want. And if you work for us and you don't like that, then fuck off, which is great. You should be saying that as a company, but you also shouldn't be making all of these very concerning
Yeah.
Movies, shows, like there's like a list of them that are pretty uncomfortable, aka like things like cuties.
Yeah. If you bought $10,000 of Netflix stock at the beginning of the year, you would now have lost $6,859 of it.
Yeah.
For like most of it.
It kind of
almost
plummeted a
all of it.
little
Yeah.
because people were pissed.
This is the United States Department of Agriculture weekly statistics on like agriculture progress, like planting progress.
Mhm.
So this one's May 9th, and then you can go through it and you can see that like literally we're behind by a lot compared to last year and the average of the last 5 years. With corn planted, corn emerged. Look at these blanks here when we're supposed to have this by now in this time of the year. Same thing with soybeans, same thing with cotton, rice, where like nothing's being planted, and even the stuff that's being planted isn't growing because all of the places that usually don't get enough rain, they're now getting a freaking mega drought, and all of the places that get enough rain are now getting hella floods.
Yeah.
And
China specifically.
nobody has fertilizer, nobody has insecticides,
Yeah.
nobody has herbicides.
Because there's full-blown banning of
Yeah.
it like everywhere, like sanctioning the shit out of it. So
And and this is despite the fact that we've actually had more days suitable for field work, apparently, in
Yeah.
all of these different states.
yeah, despite that, quote unquote, but
Yeah. So this is something that I try to check every week or two to see how it's going, and it just gives you like the raw numbers. Look, we're just not growing the food.
yeah.
Like, what do you want to do about it? There's
Yeah.
like that is the truth.
But don't worry.
God's gonna take care of it, or
No, the government.
the government's gonna take care of it,
God doesn't got us.
or you don't. You're just,
God's like, okay, you can suffer a bit because you kind of did it to yourselves.
or you just think, nah, that couldn't happen in Canada
Yeah,
in 2022.
that's definitely everybody's
Nothing bad could happen to us.
mental state at the moment.
This is the
They love separating themselves mentally from what could be wrong with Western society
the ship
or
is
society in general.
the ship is unsinkable. What are you talking
Exactly.
about?
We're on the Titanic. What do you mean?
Yeah,
We can never possibly sink.
yeah.
Snaps in half.
This is a parody account, but we,
Yes.
sometimes it's hard to tell whether
Oh yeah,
something's even
I
parody or
literally had
not.
to go look at the account to verify whether it was a satire
Yeah.
account or not, and it is.
Best-
Thank God.
Yeah, best friend called in tears because her boyfriend supports the SCOTUS decision. She said, "Men don't understand because men can't get pregnant." I blocked her and called her employer. I'm shaking. I can't believe she's a transphobe.
What's so sad about this in particular? It's hilarious because it's so
Because
outlandish.
people actually
But
believe it.
people actually do this. They
Yeah.
don't just believe it; they do that. They call people that they, so-called friends
I
of
have
theirs.
a better example of that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Ontario Liberals to promise to cut transit fares to $1 until 2024.
Yeah, what the fuck?
In the
Like,
middle of-
why do the parties in Canada do this shit? I don't understand why they promise things that are clearly not promisable, and yet every time they're elected anyway, they throw it out the window. It's exactly like this is literally
Just
dollar
imagine
beer.
the lines. Just imagine the lines. They're not going to be able to hire
Exactly.
enough staff. They're
It's
not going to
already
be able
Go
to.
Train already sucks. Like people know this. Like Go Train literally is slow as hell and it's not good, and yet
There's such a labor shortage that projects in Toronto are,
yeah.
being abandoned or
Yeah.
like non-completed, or it's going on pause and stuff because of labor shortage. You do this, like how are the transit systems going to be able to pay to have workers
They can't.
actually manage the track system?
Not with
Well,
inflation.
they have to print it, but provinces can't print. The government, the federal bank will have to
Yeah,
print for the
federal-
provinces,
Yes.
which they did during COVID. And that is how you get to a race to the bottom where all of the
Yeah.
provinces know they're too big to fail. So why not just bankrupt your province as fast as possible and have everybody else bail you out?
Mhm.
So that's the
Basically.
fundamental problem with Canada as a country. And that's why this state is not going to be able to survive in this
It
form of
can't. It's
federation.
not sustainable in any way.
Here it is. Here's the one I was talking about. Trudeau tweets on May 3rd, "The right to choose is a woman's right and a woman's right
Oh
alone.
my God. I
Every
remember
woman
this.
in Canada has a right to a safe and legal abortion. We'll never back down from protecting and promoting women's rights in Canada and around the world."
First of all, why are you talking about this? Roe versus Wade has nothing to do with this. First of all. Second of all,
Second
why
of all-
are you talking about it at all? I don't understand.
Third of all, note that it's not just women who have abortions.
Oh, yeah.
Folks of many genders need abortions. It's not even just two. please update your conceptual framework and language to be inclusive of everyone who needs access to abortions.
So this is actually exactly the kind of person that the other account is trying to parody. This is on a much lower level, but I've
Yeah.
seen that level of the parody account before and mean it.
Yeah.
So I'm not even,
Yeah.
this is what we mean when it's very difficult to determine whether an account is meant for satire or not these days. And so when you look at the comments on satire accounts, like a lot of the time people actually believe that this person thinks that way. And
Yeah.
it's just a shit show.
I'm sure Zara Khan's parents are proud.
I'm sure they are.
Hungary and Slovakia get 2 years to comply with Russian oil ban. What a joke.
Honestly, do we even have anything to say about that?
This is a good meme. Ivermectin. So everybody was talking about how using ivermectin for COVID is crazy because it's horse medicine. It's used
Yeah.
for horse deworming.
Yeah.
Even though somebody actually won a Nobel Peace Prize in medicine for ivermectin's use in humans.
Yeah.
But then the same like circles were promoting, as soon as Roe v. Wade happened, misoprostol, which is horse ulcer treatment in order to induce abortions.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So that's sane.
Did you bring up the fact that there's the political compass of who prefers what horse medicine?
No, I didn't include that, I think. Yeah. But, so horse medicine
Related to COVID is big bad for liberals, but if you want to get rid of your unborn child, this other horse medicine is a-okay.
Yeah. So if you're a right winger, this is the horse medicine you want to get. And if you're a left winger, this is the horse medicine you want to
Can you
get.
imagine just two sides like cheering ivermectin or misoprostol
Yeah.
or whatever the fuck it's
So in
called?
the political compass one, it was ivermectin was bottom right. And then top right was this like steroid that people use, but it's a horse medicine. And then the bottom left was the misoprostol. And then the top left was ketamine.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
And
yeah.
the middle was just Adderall. Yeah.
Very
I got a
accurate.
404 error on this one. What was this?
I don't know.
Oh, this was I don't know why they took down the article about, basically this article is about how the forcibly released Pfizer documents uncovered that basically like over 1,000 people actually died during trials and that the effectiveness rate was actually
Right,
12%.
And they probably got threatened by the government or someone with a lot of money.
Yeah, it was
To be sued.
it was written by Keenan Bexty, the original article. There's so many good like inflation memes because the inflation narrative just runs on the socialist narrative.
Yeah.
Of like, we can do this, nothing's bad, nothing bad's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not gonna be that bad. Oh, it's actually it's actually not that bad, or oh, it's actually going great. And then eventually it's like your fault or somebody else's fault that
Yeah.
it went bad.
Yeah.
And
Usually not their fault. It's
Yeah.
never their fault. It's always someone else's fault.
yeah, it's never the fact that, humans just
It's a
can't
very-
centrally manage a complicated system.
Yeah, it's a very narcissistic approach to
Not-
anything.
It's just
really.
like not understanding like human limitations, I guess.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, there's no inflation. Inflation is transitory. Inflation is good. Up to here, I predicted it like from like the start of COVID, basically.
Yeah.
I couldn't have seen.
Yeah, you wouldn't have known that Putin did it.
Yeah, I did also think that Ukraine was gonna get invaded before it happened, but I guess I should have seen that they were gonna connect the inflation to Putin. It was like just one too many steps removed for me to make that connection.
Basically, yeah.
I just have I don't know what that was.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love contradictory liberal opinions.
Yeah, so men
It's too
can't
funny.
have abortions. No, men can't have an opinion on abortion, or men can have babies. So
Yeah, which is what you saw.
yeah,
Like just these sheer amount of people that I saw that are typically considered liberal, especially on their Instagram stories. They were like, how dare men have this opinion and infringe upon the rights of women. Meanwhile, they're the exact same people that think men can have babies.
yeah. And this
So-
is the article that I had that was supposed to show up earlier. So get this. Northern Ireland faces loss of 1 million sheep and cattle to meet climate targets. Okay, and these are the same mouths that are talking about food shortages.
Of course.
Bank of Canada says strong demand risks higher inflation. So what could possibly cause strong demand? You think maybe like everybody has too much money?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Like
Could be.
maybe
I don't
like
know.
everybody needs
Maybe that's
to,
why all the restaurant prices are skyrocketing.
or maybe like everybody needs to eat regardless of what the prices are, and we're just not making enough food.
Yeah, that's seems pretty plausible, but I'm pretty sure the government would just argue that you're wrong somehow.
Yeah. And this meme is kind of a commentary on how like socialists, like especially the Champagne socialists, they
100%. It's literally every neckbeard that's ever existed on the planet, and harbors nothing but Reddit.
yeah, they don't understand the logical conclusions of like what their own opinions are. It's like you want the government to control everything and you think you're just going to get to do whatever you want.
The only problem is that this narrative is starting to, well, not narrative, but mentality is spreading.
Yeah, socialism for thee and not for me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Socialism for everyone else but me.
Yeah, anybody that considers himself left-leaning or thinking automatically also consider themselves socialist to some degree.
Yeah.
Which is not a good thing.
Because there's been such a destigmatization of the term.
But remember, it's not real socialism.
Yeah. This is a fun one. Michael Saylor has this company called MicroStrategy. Doesn't really matter what MicroStrategy was about because now it's all about Bitcoin. All he does is he buys Bitcoin with the company and says that's the future. That's his whole thing. And
meanwhile, it's completely plummeting.
He's borrowed. Every time Bitcoin goes down, he borrows more money to buy more Bitcoin.
Oh my God.
And now basically and he has to keep paying interest on all of that borrowed money that went to Bitcoin, and the interest rate is going up. And if what happens is when you trade on margin, so you borrow money to trade, then once the underlying asset, it's basically like you're borrowing money to buy Bitcoin and then you're using the Bitcoin as collateral. So once the Bitcoin drops below a certain price, all of the Bitcoin gets automatically sold so that the money can go to the person who lent the money.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, if cryptocurrency goes down to below 21,000, I think it's at 28,000. We're back up to 29,000. It took a
real steep dive.
A rough month, yeah.
Yeah.
But if Bitcoin goes below 21,000 and Michael Saylor they basically have like a forced liquidation of all of his Bitcoin, that's gonna create like a vicious cycle where all of his Bitcoin getting sold suddenly is going to lower the price. And then all of these different trading algorithms and swing traders are gonna flag that as like a bear indicator, like indication that the price is gonna go down more. So they're gonna sell. It's just gonna create this vicious cycle. So I hope this happens. That would be fun to see. Yes, all the Ukraine activists have become the abortion activists.
Yes, it happened overnight, literally. And then most of them actually ended up changing their profile pictures anyway, but you also had people adding emojis to their Twitter accounts to somehow imply that they were for abortion, but they still supported Ukraine.
Yeah. You have to support the current things.
You have to.
Sometimes you have to juggle more
when
than
you're
one.
A liberal and a diehard one at that, you have to support all of the things.
So this is how they basically keep the regular folk occupied, basically.
Yeah, essentially.
All of the people who don't
distracted.
have to, all of the people who have the privilege of not actually worrying about their day-to-day needs, they get distracted with
everybody that lives in their mom's basement and also is a part of the subreddit anti-work.
Yeah, this is just this is all mindless circus distraction.
And people that are still in undergrad, apparently.
Yeah. Remember when college debt people said things like, we need a plague to kill off the boomers, and then a really mild one came and they were huge pussies about it?
Yeah, basically. That's literally what happened. They're like, oh my God, how could people die?
Yeah.
The old people are dying, no!
So this is happening everywhere. It's not like it's happening in one place or two of the places or even 30% or half of the places
literally
or
everywhere.
Most of the places. It's literally everywhere. The whole,
because it's not just like the sanctions and the bans from certain countries that are massive importers of certain things don't just affect the Western world.
Yeah, and it's almost as if all food production on the planet Earth occurs in the global climate.
Yeah, basically.
Trans women complain about uniforms crushing their balls during dominating performance.
I'm like, I can't honestly. I know that they drew in some nutsacks there, but
I think this is satire. Actually,
I think it's satire too.
Yeah, because look at the
But
names.
I like, how do you not believe that? That's so current and with the times,
Yeah.
and a real problem that liberals face apparently.
Yeah, so this one is satire.
But it's great.
Yeah. Wheat can't catch a break right now. India's giant heat wave is having ripple effects for the world's food supply. Okay, like, yeah, it's happening everywhere.
Literally everywhere. Like the global, like climate related stuff doesn't just affect specific places.
And it's not happening at like a normal rate. This year is very different. And so these next 2 years is going to be quite something.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll settle into like a new, like midway like transition, eye of the storm. And then by the end of the decade, it's all going to be,
Yeah.
we're going to have to deconstruct a lot of our human constructions.
Yeah. In which case people won't want to do because humans hate
Oh,
regressing.
they want to deconstruct patriarchy
besides
and white
that.
supremacy, but they don't want to deconstruct the actual problems with the system.
Oh, of course,
then
yeah.
they wouldn't be able to fucking eat.
Exactly.
They'd rather, yeah.
They'd rather do a lot of other things that are useless to society.
So this is also like a nice commentary on, you know, like how the world works. Like, could Elon Musk's Twitter deal give China influence over the site? So it's Forbes talking about how
Yeah.
China has influence over Elon Musk, and now Elon Musk has over Twitter over Twitter. And then Forbes is actually owned by China's Integrated Whale Media Investments.
Just like everything is owned by China.
Just like Jeff Bezos talking about, like, Jeff Bezos was talking a lot of shit about Elon Musk buying Twitter and how he's like compromised because of China. He was making a big stink about it.
Lots of billionaires.
But he's freaking compromised by China.
He's compromised by China, and the man is also buying up a shitload of farmland.
Yeah. Gas is at another record high with 5-cent jump at midnight. You haven't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, honestly.
I predicted that this would be the year for $2 gas like 2 years ago.
And it happened.
And it finally happened.
It finally happened. Actually, we got a message from a friend this morning who sent us a photo of 202. And he was like, when did this happen? I was like, well, if you've been paying attention, it happened a couple days ago. And not only that, but Mika hasn't shut up about it for 2 years. So.
Yeah, I was always saying 160 by 2021 and $2 by 2022 in the GTA. I was like a little bit, like 160 happened a little bit late. It was like in January.
Little bit late, yeah, because there was that whole section of time in the beginning of COVID when gas got really, really cheap, like when we were children, kind of cheap.
Now it's looking like 220 this year.
Yeah, so we'll see how far that goes by the end of the year, but congrats. Did you want a cookie for nailing it on the head? Or?
Oh, but you know, this doesn't affect me because I I bike and I live in the city, so
yeah,
this doesn't affect me at all.
I forgot. We don't have a car.
No, what I mean is, like,
I know
this affects everything.
It does.
Just like how diesel affects everything. Even if you don't have a car, this affects you.
Like, think about it this way: even if we ran out of diesel and we somehow managed to finesse trucks that run on gasoline, same thing is going to occur.
Yeah.
Like automatically, like right away. People are going to be downtown starving with their bicycles and wondering where all the food is. And if they're going to have to start eating the shitty grass at like Queen's Park or something.
Yeah. By the way, inflation is a made up problem. Bitch, I hate white people.
Oh yeah, I sent this because I thought it was so
It's literally
funny.
imagined. Just make it not exist so people don't have to be poor. It's that easy. It's a little more complicated than that. It's absolutely not. Money is literally paper made from clothing fibers with evil white men on it. Make some more.
Oh my fucking God. When I saw this, I was like, all right, you can tell that this isn't satire because their names are blurred out, first of all. Second of all, that's like the same equivalent as the type of people that think money is a concept.
Yeah.
And think, why can't you just print more?
Yeah. So this is a really interesting way of presenting just how unsustainable the current real estate market conditions are.
Mm-hmm.
So Canada's real estate bubble is so big that if all the prices of all the homes went down by $91,000, that would only be going back in time 3 months.
Like, wow.
I don't understand the left-wing obsession with farmers markets. It seems performative. You have no idea if Farmer Bill treats his workers correctly. I doubt they're unionized. Best bet is to shop at Kroger or another unionized grocery store. Yeah, because they don't buy from farmers.
Oh, yeah.
The petite bourgeoisie won't save us.
Again, another situation in which you'd think it's satire, but no.
Yeah.
This is why it's difficult to tell between the two, because you get shit like that. Like at first you're like, okay, where is this going? And then you read the rest of it and you're like, oh, you're crazy. Oh.
Okay, so Forbes asks, May 12th, is hyperinflation coming?
Wow, I wonder. Good question.
So apparently inflation is because of the government. Wow.
Oh,
I actually got it right.
wow. For once.
Yeah.
At least you can count on certain media companies to like sort of get it.
Yeah. And you can't, well, certain people within certain
Yeah,
media companies.
certain. Yeah, it's more like who has the integrity and who doesn't.
Yeah. So, it's going to take some time to bring inflation back to control. It's not really about interest rates. You can just do QE or QT without interest rates, but how? And so basically this is a more like technical explanation about how, there's like different ways for the government to control inflation. But like I said,
None of them are good.
we still have this fundamental problem of if you don't keep printing money, then everything's going to collapse.
Yeah.
And if you do keep printing money, then everything is going to be like the inflation is going to get worse and worse. And so
and eventually collapse.
and so basically this article's thesis is that this is, you could call it's sometimes what's referred to as like a Fed put, which is like when the stock market hits like a certain level that the central bank will switch from going from pro inflation to like fighting against inflation, or from going from fighting against inflation to creating more inflation.
Mhm.
But what they like, we have a term, it's called stagflation. It describes when we discovered in the 70s that you can actually have deflation. So like deflation, no, like you can actually have recession. So
Yeah.
lowering asset prices at the same time as inflation, where consumer prices are going up. So this article basically assumes, if the stock price has come down to here, then the Fed doesn't need to fight inflation anymore because inflation is under control. Look, all of these prices have come down. But no, this is the price of stocks, but the price of everything else, like the actual stuff that we need to have, is still going to be going up, because that's still going to be catching up to all of the money that's already been printed.
I mean, I've actually seen a few articles here and there within the last week and a half talking about Canada possibly hitting a recession, especially that's a very common political talking point right now.
The recession will solve inflation.
Exactly.
No, it's not.
It doesn't solve shit, first of all.
We literally have a term, stagflation.
Yeah, you got like people like Pierre Poilievre and other political heads talking about that in particular. But it's all a fucking distraction. Yeah. We don't want to talk about the real fucking issue here.
Yeah. This dog really wants to be part of the conversation.
Yes.
Don't you, dog? Anyways, so yeah, like all of this look like fancy suit guy with the fancy, fancy credentials, all of this, flowery technical talk and all of these graphs just to talk a lot of shit. Just to talk a load of bullshit.
It's a lot of shit. And they think that people who don't understand complicated business language is somehow going to be like, shit's okay.
They basically want you to think, I don't understand it, so I better pretend to be convinced, otherwise I'm gonna feel stupid. So it's like psychological emperor's new clothes situation.
This article told me how to think, therefore I think this.
Yeah.
Yes.
The men getting pregnant, and God's like,
I thought
Noah,
this was so
get the boat.
fucking funny.
Get the boat.
I was like, oh, honestly, realistically, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, this is like feels. You know what? Get in the boat, everyone.
This same person was actually in a campaign for
Yeah.
Calvin Klein, and pretty much everybody has been talking about it recently. But forget the fact that there's a shortage of formula in the US right now.
Yeah, we
which
think
this person will need, literally, whether you agree with it or not.
yeah, we think we're on like this great unsinkable Titanic, but we really got to be heading for the lifeboats.
Really, honestly.
Right about,
Yeah.
now. Maybe like I don't know.
I could make a joke about women and children first, but
but I'm not a biologist.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh God,
We don't
China,
have time to talk about that right now.
China's that's a whole episode in itself, really,
Yeah.
depending on the topic.
50 years ago, I bet they'll have flying cars in the future.
Yeah.
Welcome to the future, everyone.
Let me use this plastic bag full of VOCs to protect myself from Zakov.
Ontario Liberals and NDP offer different rent control provinces. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
my God, this shit.
We don't have enough rent control. That's the problem. That's why we have a
This is
housing
what I meant.
shortage. Not enough rent control. If only we had more rent control, more housing would get built.
Wow, if only. And then people could actually afford their rent. No, it doesn't quite work like that. This is what I meant. Like I had mentioned that at lunch, like the
This is
political parties had been talking about stupid points to
Yeah,
gain votes.
it's so weird looking back to like we used to be really into politics, right?
Yeah.
But now the election has just become like a complete sideshow. Like it really doesn't fucking matter
Oh, it's
at
just
all.
entertainment at
It's
this
like
point.
who's gonna be the premier of Ontario? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, literally who?
Who gives a shit? Like what are they? What they can't even do anything differently.
Yeah,
anyway.
they can't anyway.
They're all of their hands are
Ford's gonna
forced
win
by
again.
the system.
Yeah, exactly. Ford's
I
gonna
have
win
a-
again
yeah.
anyway, and he's gonna roll over like he has every single time
Yeah.
so far. So
Government, if you think the problems we create are bad, just wait till you see our solutions.
exactly. Yeah, it's a solution covering up a solution covering up.
Just
a
wait
solution.
until the government starts to try to solve the actual food shortages with like price controls and
caps
quotas
and
and rations and like
get your
vouchers.
food stamps.
Oh my goodness.
Bread line.
Yeah, that's gonna solve the food shortage.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I was gonna talk about this, but I really can't be bothered. We've already been on for over an hour.
Oh,
Who cares about this? Who cares about this?
No one.
Scott Atchison, Scott Atchison just wants to basically have a cabinet position if one of the more lefter ones win. Roman Baber just wants to restart his political career after he was kicked out of the Ontario Conservative Party for opposing lockdowns. Patrick Brown's just a deep state plan to support all the terrorists and wants to get all the brown people votes. Jean Charest is literally a liberal. Like
he's a liberal in blue.
No, he's not in a blue suit. He was literally the leader of the Liberal Party of Quebec, and he was the premier of Quebec. And all he did was raise taxes and all of the other things
People
you'd
hate
expect
him.
from the Liberal Party
Yeah.
of Quebec. And
Everybody knows he's a liberal and claims he's a liberal anyway. So
yeah, Leslyn Lewis, not sure what the deal was with her. Supported her in the last leadership race, but she really didn't. She wasn't able to really hire any good staff
she's
because
not
everybody.
very good at talking.
Yeah, but she could I think where she got off on the wrong foot was she showed up to the game late and she didn't
Yes.
understand the game.
Yeah.
So everybody else bought up all the good staff. So you kind of end up in like a
You
vicious
get it.
cycle after that.
A shitty hand dealt to you, basically.
Yeah,
at
and
that
I'm not
point.
really convinced that she like really has any understanding on how
Yeah, I'm
anything
not sure she
works.
really cares at all.
She just understands like some social issues. Like I think she like understands how to compromise between like pro and anti-abortion if the media
Yeah.
would give her the popularity,
If
which
they
they
would.
wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
She thought
They would.
maybe they would because she's black, but no. And then there's Pierre Poilievre, who's been a politician since he was 25, but otherwise knows what to say.
He does. He's very good at articulating exactly what the community or what certain voters are looking for.
My opinion is that if you support Pierre Poilievre, then he's going to shepherd you under the tent and he's going to cash in on it. And that's his job.
Yeah.
That's his career.
Likely. but he's literally the best pick.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. Yes.
Just broke up with my white boyfriend and he removed BLM from his life. And to be fair to Pierre Poilievre a bit, like he talks about like banning digital currency and stuff like that.
Yeah, he
So,
does bring up a lot of good points that a lot of conservatives are interested in
yeah.
and are actually afraid of because, after all that shit with Trudeau and him doing what he did during the convoy was just, it really tanked him. So people
Okay,
are scared.
So more fear about deep recession because of rate hikes. Okay.
See, told you.
Adam says, I want a perfect soulmate. God says that'll cost an arm and a leg. Adam says, what can I get for a rib? I'm lucky I still have my arm and leg.
That's true. That's how you piss off the female population.
Yeah. Reverse mortgages take off in Canada as more seniors look to age in place. So this is basically seniors, they have retirement plans, they retire, they realize, oh, when they made their retirement plans, everything was cheaper. Now everything is more expensive.
Yeah, now
So
they have
now
to overcompensate.
So now you have to borrow against the value of your home in order to basically keep your shit going.
Yeah.
And young people are doing that in cities as well. Everybody's going into debt. And, when ice is melting, the last part of the ice to melt is the surface. Where everybody's going into deeper and deeper debt, and it's kind of invisible for now, but it's only invisible until it's not. And when it's not, that means we've reached a threshold and it all comes bubbling to the surface all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better to be 3 years early to the panic than 1 minute too late, because things can happen real fast once the threshold is reached.
Yeah, but it's also really hard to convince people that they should be preparing for that, because then you just come across as like a doomsday nut, unfortunately. Yeah. So
you're depressing.
Yeah, basically.
I think it's depressing to live your whole life as a lie.
That's far more depressing than hearing about how shit is hitting the fan.
You can interpret the truth as depressing if you're not skilled enough to see the opportunity and the advantages of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
it's like, I get it to some degree. If you're talking about it too much all the time, yeah, maybe shut up about it. But most of the time, you don't have to.
Yeah, but living in a lie is definitely more depressing than that. So the inflation scare doesn't match reality. Republicans are scaremongering about inflation to derail the Democratic agenda. That's a good one.
Yes.
Why the inflation we're seeing now is a good thing.
I like how you picked most of my memes.
Should the government control the price of food and gas? And then now Biden, my top priority is fighting inflation. There's been so many versions of this meme.
That's true.
There was a version of this meme that was like before the actual articles came out. This was like all of these stages were predicted beforehand.
Yeah, but
by
they
not
just
myself.
Updated it with the actual articles.
Global wheat crop likely to fall for the first time in 4 years.
No shit.
Reject modernity, embrace tradition.
Why not both?
don't be like BTS soy boys. Be like Chad, Roof Koreans, LA riots, 1992.
Yeah, you gotta wear them Hawaiian shirts too.
Fuck around and find out.
Honestly.
Dividend bonanza coming from Canada's banks. So everybody wants to, get all the money out of the banks before you get your money out of the bank.
Basically, yeah.
Don't want a baby, don't have sex, crowd gets angry. Hate pro-lifers, don't have sex, crowd is thrilled at that.
Which was what was happening all over Twitter. People were literally claiming, even TikTok too, there was women who were like, fine, I don't get abortion rights, I won't have sex with you.
And it's like, that's literally what
they're literally asking you to do that.
The whole point, yeah. Like one of the major points of, yeah.
They're like, maybe abstain. And they're like, you know what? Maybe I will.
Yeah. It's like how like a super left wing feminists are now like rediscovering the value of monogamy.
Yeah.
It's like, feminists, we gotta start demanding monogamy, basically. It's like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, do that.
I hate men, but we kind of need them. Like just stupid shit like that. It's everywhere now.
Gold and silver fall as rising interest rates dampen sentiment. So So why do gold and silver fall as every time the inflation rate goes up, the gold and silver price actually goes down because the market anticipates the higher inflation goes, the harder they expect interest rates to go up to fight that inflation, even though, that interest rate hike can't actually happen.
Right.
And then so everybody is like, okay, well, that's bad for gold and silver because gold and silver, unlike stocks, they don't pay any dividends. They don't pay any yield. They're just a safe haven of value. So in a higher interest rate environment, then gold and silver are not as good. And also the markets expect. So it's almost like the more inflation appears, the more the market expects there to be less inflation in the future because the government's on it.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what goes on with that. Women on TikTok say hookup culture will be absolutely decimated if Roe v. Wade is overturned.
This is exactly what I was
Oh
talking
no,
about.
all the Christian moms are gonna be so upset.
So mad. Your mother is going to be so disappointed.
Yeah. Cities are so unaffordable that young Canadians run deficits, so everybody's going into debt.
Yeah, which is pretty obvious.
An average of $750 a month of extra debt, apparently. Abortion good, abortion bad. And maybe we're being distracted from all of these other, real problems that we're having and are inconvenient to talk about, because then you start disliking all of the government mismanagement, and they want to divide and conquer, not have everybody come after them.
Yeah.
So fight against each other. Don't fight against the government who actually caused all of your problems. Yeah. Food prices could continue to soar due to fertilizer shortage. This is a Canadian one. Agriculture is absolutely being crushed.
Yeah, it's just shot at this point. And I'm sure all of the farmers are absolutely panicking because that's their livelihood.
Well, they have YouTube videos and they have their own blogs and newspapers.
That's
and stuff,
true,
and
but
they are
not
panicking.
every farmer is doing that, right? Like
there's plenty
some people are long-term farmers.
There's plenty of panic though, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is run by Eric Grenier, like a liberal pollster, and even he's predicting like a 96% chance of Doug Ford winning re-election. So I guess we're just coronating him now. So every riding in Ontario actually has a New Blue Party candidate. So I would encourage everybody to just vote for the New Blue Party, not the Ontario Party, those guys are faggots, but the New Blue Party specifically. Just vote for them. I mean, Doug Ford's gonna win anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, it doesn't matter who the fuck you vote for.
Someone has Doug Ford by the balls. Someone has a video of him smoking crack or something, because he's
something.
He's upsetting. Yeah, the deep state is for him, but he is upsetting. He's upset all the conservatives. He's upset all the liberals.
He's upset every side.
So somehow he's going to win, even though everybody hates him. Because that's democracy. Toronto housing sales are slowing down, but not when it comes to homes over 1.5 million. So this is just a pure affordability thing. People who can still afford to buy big homes, all of those big homes, the prices are still going up.
Yeah.
But all of the houses where people are basically grabbing what they can afford and actually fits whatever compromise criteria or whatever, those ones are the ones the sales are going to slow down first. And like I said, the last part of the ice to melt is the surface.
Yeah.
And the ice we skate, it's getting pretty thin. Water's getting warm, so you might as well swim. Yeah. This is the green movement in a single photo. Paper straw and plastic wrap.
I thought that was so funny when I saw that this morning.
Yeah. Bank of Canada says 1% policy rate too stimulative, may need to go above neutral. So maybe 1% interest rate isn't enough to fight 8% inflation, which is actually 18% inflation.
Exactly.
Okay, so maybe we need to go above neutral. Neutral is apparently 2.5%, regardless of what the inflation rate is. So yeah, okay. So like I said, so the interest rate is 1% now. Let's say we go 5x to 5%. We're still below the inflation rate. And like I was explaining earlier, all the provinces are bankrupt because now all of the all of the tax revenues that they receive wouldn't even
Mm.
be able to cover the interest payments on the debt. So
Mm.
this is the end of the game.
Mm.
And
Pierre Polyever was actually talking about this specifically.
but he doesn't even understand that the game is over. He still
Yeah, he
thinks that
doesn't,
things can
but-
be fixed.
I don't know. Actually, he might understand that the game is over, but in order to win votes or the interest of people, he might
That's the thing. There's
paint
no,
it a certain way.
that's my suspicion with politicians is that anybody
Yeah.
who really understands the situation wouldn't be running for shit.
Well, some of it, it's just like it's their career,
All our ancient Greek ancestors looking at us having these complex machines that can do the work of thousands of men, but yet we all still have jobs instead of having orgies outside and eating figs.
They're like, yeah, what the fuck?
I don't know. I'll skip that one. Canadians jumping into retirement early are discovering it's more expensive than they thought.
No shit.
So you're gonna have a lot of people actually who like COVID happened, they called
Yeah.
it quits, they retired early. They're gonna have to come out of retirement.
Yeah.
Also because of all of that extra retiring, and it's like the baby boomers are retiring.
Yeah.
The millennials are way less in population than the retiring baby boomers, and they're wussies. They don't want to work. They don't want to go into the workforce for whatever reason. They want to travel Europe first, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they want to have their masters and doctorates and 5
Whatever,
degrees and
what
stuff.
have you, yeah.
So we're just not replacing our working population, and no amount of we're not going to fix that with immigration because the jobs that we need to fill are not going to be able to be filled. The way that we take immigrants is it's just not going to be able to fix the problem of the fact that everybody's retiring. Plus, all of our stuff is made in China, and China
Yeah.
has an even bigger problem with the retiring population. 'Cause
Yeah, they do.
the last of the one child policy generation is starting to retire, and the current millennial population is not going to
That's not
be
their only
replacing.
issue.
No, but what I'm saying is
I know.
before one child policy, you had this massive Chinese population.
Yeah, of
They're
course,
all
yeah.
working in factories and stuff. All
Yeah.
these factory workers are retiring, and
Yeah.
who's going to replace them? The millennials, the
Mm.
Chinese millennials in
just that, but
2022.
They're also being starved to death because of COVID related issues.
Yeah, that's a totally different thing.
It's not just that either though. And now they're trying to push for 3 kids and people can't afford it. They literally
But
can't.
that's
that
not.
way.
That's already too little, too late anyway.
Exactly.
You
That's
could,
the whole point.
everybody could start having 10 kids immediately,
And it wouldn't fix
and it
anything.
still wouldn't fix it.
It wouldn't
Because
fix
the
anything.
fact of the matter is what matters is who is retiring now and
Mhm.
who is entering the workforce now.
Mhm,
So who is entering the workforce now? The ages are going up
mhm.
and the population is going down,
Mm-hmm.
and the retiring population is the big sector of the population.
Yeah.
Doug Ford doesn't want to interview TVO. It's kind of unusual. Usually
Yeah, that is pretty
TVO is
unusual.
pretty fair in terms of their
I mean,
interviewing.
TVO's been around for
As
their
long as
entire
Steve Paikin does the interviewing and not the other lady.
lives.
And yeah, I don't remember a time in history when an Ontario politician wouldn't show up on the agenda.
I wanna know
that was
why.
kind of like the go-to neutral ground for everybody.
Yeah, but why? Why did he say no? What is the actual reason? We'll probably never know why.
Yeah,
But-
apparently they've had every premier in the last 50 years.
But not Ford.
But not Ford. And he's been on the show before, and
Yeah, he
it's been
has.
fine. But I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe there's probably too
one?
much to ask and him to answer, and he has no answers.
Yeah, this one, I don't know.
He
Maybe
would just be in boiling water the whole time.
it really just seems like somebody's got his balls, and he isn't making his own choices, and so he can't really
Yeah.
explain his own choices. Maybe
Yeah.
even
That's kind of the vibe.
threat of violent extremism rising in Canada, and peace told.
Right. Yeah. And what exactly is that?
Yeah.
You mean peaceful protesters and a bunch of liberal hired shit disturbers?
They're basically they're basically trying to get ready for when people start to starve and they have to people
I
start
guess so,
protesting
yeah.
against the government.
It's very much us
govern-
against them.
Governments are going to be overthrown because of the food shortage, so they're getting out ahead of the problem and calling everybody who protests against them extremists. Freeze their bank accounts so that everybody knows that we will do that. So later on, when you're already starving, you're not going to want to protest and get your bank account frozen on top of all of the shit that's already going on.
Yeah.
So there's that. Why don't you read the LinkedIn post?
Oh yes, Stephen Shore, who is Maisie, who is a partner at this particular firm. It doesn't matter. Anyway, he says the greatest pain I've ever felt in my life was when my wife and I experienced pregnancy loss. And there we were on a sunny September day, 20 weeks along in our OB's office, all anticipation and delight. Then our ultrasound, there was no heartbeat, then it was over. Well, not really. 2 days later, we were in the hospital to deliver, and it was an ordeal. As most hospital rooms, there was a television. So you can see where this is going. You're thinking, okay, so this man, he's probably gonna explain how this was really traumatic for him and how it like changed his life in some way, and how, you know, maybe his wife was also deeply affected by it too. But let's continue. As in most hospital rooms, there was a television. And as in some Septembers, far too few, the Blue Jays were at a pennant race. I turned on the game. They were playing Cleveland. I remember them rallying in the bottom of the seventh to surge ahead. I remember in that moment feeling joyful. And though, given the circumstances, that feeling of joy was met with some feelings of guilt, I couldn't deny the emotion. I was happy the Blue Jays were winning. I was excited by what led ahead of them, resilience. So this man not only starts talking about a Blue Jays game, while his wife is literally giving birth.
Resilience.
And then
brave.
He literally says this shit. He's like, yeah, I was distracted by the game and I felt good. And maybe a little bit guilty for watching the game. And then he says resilience.
In this mental health week, I want to focus on resilience.
Like what? How did we get
a buzzy word,
point?
But often misunderstood. It's all about me. I thought this was good. Anyways, I'll go through the context, but like, people say be resilient and mean when bad things happen. Rebound and keep at it. That's not right, though. We cannot be intentionally resilient. We can't force our way. Well, I don't know, like whatever, all of this shit. It's like, okay, so.
Yeah, so he goes on this whole spiel about resilience that was completely fucking unrelated to what he was even talking about. And then on top of that, he also outed the fact that he was watching a fucking game while his wife was giving birth to their poor dead child. Like, what is wrong with you?
And you bragged about it on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
to everyone you know.
Your firm knows this now. Everybody that you are connected to knows this now. People you don't even know knows this now. Like, what is wrong with you?
LinkedIn is like the absolute cesspool of oblivious self-embarrassment, just because
honestly,
nobody can really call anyone out on LinkedIn, because when you comment on someone's post on LinkedIn, then it shows up on everybody you know's feed, and actually people who know them will even see it.
Even if they click on your profile, it literally says recently commented on.
Yeah.
So people will know that you were commenting on someone's post, even if they aren't connected to this person.
So then you have this complete lack of self-awareness, and everybody just
applauds it. It's weird.
Like this was posted recently. This was like
recently.
Like when I started reading this, I thought it was about Roe v. Wade, right?
Yeah, so, I thought I had a similar feeling
because that's when it was posted. So like just around the time Roe v. Wade happens, this guy is reminded of this brilliant moment. He posts about it, and then somebody I know who knows this person actually liked it, and that's how it showed up on my feed. I don't even know this guy, and this is just run of the mill for LinkedIn.
Yeah, reading this really pissed me off for so many reasons.
So yeah,
mainly for the fact that he's narcissistic to the point where he thinks that he's going to get some social brownie points for talking about mental health awareness week and using his wife's late-term miscarriage as a crutch to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's fucking sad.
Yeah, so I think we're, out of time. We're out of tabs anyway. I am mentally exhausted. So we're like, normally we have the window open right now, but we closed it so that you don't hear the traffic outside, and it is just boiling in here.
Yeah.
That was so mentally exhausting. It was like a totally different thing from doing it by myself.
Well,
And
yeah, when you do it by yourself, you have it
I
all
literally just threw
planned out, right?
yeah, I literally just opened up all these tabs this morning and we just,
It was
went
kind
into
of
it blind.
A little out of order. Probably could have had more direction in terms of like grouping certain
Yeah.
things that were related to each other together.
Yeah. We'll listen,
So-
we'll listen to it and we'll see what we should do next week. But on that note, thanks for tuning in and see you again next week.